Welcome, Shadow Seekers, to American Shadows, Crimes and Chronicles. Today, we're unearthing a tale that'll haunt your thoughts long after it ends. Whether you're glued to the screen or just listening in, you're in for a wild ride through history's darkest corners. If you're new, hit subscribe to join our mission of exposing America's hidden truths. Regulars, your likes fuel our journey into the unknown. Now, let's peel back the layers of time and reveal the secrets beneath. Ready? Let's begin. The day Alabama defied the nation. George Wallace's Schoolhouse stand. Hello, friends, and welcome to American Shadows, Crimes and Chronicles. Today we're traveling back to September 2nd, 1963, a day that would become another battleground in the long struggle for civil rights in America. On this date, Alabama Governor George Wallace, the self-proclaimed champion of segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever, took his stand against integration at Tuskegee High School, setting the stage for a confrontation that would resonate through American history. But before we dive into the events of that tense September day, I want to thank each and every one of you for your support. Your engagement allows us to shed light on these pivotal moments in history that continue to shape our nation. What drives a man to stand in defiance of federal law and moral progress? How does a community respond when its children become pawns in a political chess game? And why does this moment in 1963 continue to resonate in America's ongoing conversation about race and education? To understand the significance of this day, we need to step back and look at the broader context of the civil rights movement. The early 1960s were a time of great tension in the United States, particularly in the South. The movement aimed to dismantle the institutionalized racism that had long oppressed African Americans, with school desegregation at the forefront of this battle. The landmark 1954 Supreme Court decision in Brown versus Board of Education had declared state laws establishing separate public schools for black and white students to be unconstitutional. However, enforcing this ruling across the southern states proved to be a monumental challenge, met with fierce resistance from segregationists. Enter George Wallace, the newly elected governor of Alabama. Wallace had burst onto the national scene with his inflammatory inaugural address in January 1963, where he declared, "Segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever." These weren't just words. Wallace was determined to put them into action. Just a few months before the Tuskegee incident, on June 11th, Wallace had made his infamous stand in the schoolhouse door at the University of Alabama. There, he physically blocked the entrance to prevent two black students, Vivian Malone and James Hood, from registering. That confrontation ended when President Kennedy federalized the Alabama National Guard, forcing Wallace to step aside. Now, on September 2nd, Wallace was ready for another showdown. The stage was Tuskegee, Alabama, a town steeped in African American history as the home of the Tuskegee Institute and the training ground for the heroic Tuskegee Airmen. 13 brave African American students were prepared to integrate Tuskegee High School, an all-white institution. As dawn broke, tension filled the air. The students, their parents, and civil rights activists gathered, ready to make history. But they were met by a wall of state troopers, deployed on Wallace's orders to prevent the school's integration. Wallace wasn't physically present, but his influence loomed large. He had issued an executive order to close Tuskegee High School and transfer its 250 white students to a nearby all-white public school. The message was clear. He would rather shut down public education than see it integrated. The scene at Tuskegee High School that day was a microcosm of the larger civil rights struggle. On one side, courageous students fighting for their constitutional right to equal education. On the other, the forces of the status quo desperately clinging to the old ways of segregation. But Wallace's defiance wouldn't go unchallenged. The federal government, under President Kennedy, was determined to enforce desegregation orders. U.S. District Judge Frank M. Johnson, Jr., a champion of civil rights, quickly issued an injunction against Wallace's executive order. He mandated that Tuskegee High School be reopened and integrated. The events in Tuskegee were part of a larger pattern of resistance to desegregation across the South. Each confrontation between state and federal authorities underscored the deep divisions within the country and the lengths to which some were willing to go to resist change. Wallace's actions in Tuskegee and elsewhere in Alabama would have far-reaching consequences. They galvanized the civil rights movement, providing stark images of official resistance to desegregation that shocked the nation's conscience. These events contributed to the momentum that would lead to the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. But what about the students caught in the middle of this political maelstrom? For them, the fight was personal. They weren't just making history, they were trying to get an education. The trauma of being blocked from their school, of facing hostile crowds and uncertainty, would stay with them for years to come. In the days following September 2nd, Tuskegee High School would eventually be integrated, but not without further struggle. Many white students, encouraged by segregationist leaders, boycotted the school. The 13 brave African American students who had sought to integrate the school found themselves in half-empty classrooms, facing hostility and isolation. The Tuskegee incident, along with Wallace's other acts of defiance, solidified his reputation as a symbol of resistance to civil rights. While it made him a hero to segregationists, it also exposed the ugliness of racism to a national audience. The courage of the students who faced these barriers played a crucial role in breaking down the walls of segregation. As we reflect on the events of September 2nd, 1963, in Tuskegee, we're left with profound questions about the nature of progress, the power of resistance, and the long shadow cast by America's history of racial discrimination. How far have we come since that tense day in Tuskegee? What battles for equality are still being fought in our schools and communities today? The story of Tuskegee High School's integration is more than just a historical footnote. It's a reminder of the courage it takes to stand up for one's rights, the ugliness of racism and its defenders, and the ongoing struggle to live up to America's ideals of equality and justice for all. This is American Shadows, where we peer into the darker corners of our nation's past. Until next time, remember that history isn't just a collection of dates and names. It's a living thing that continues to shape our world today. The echoes of September 2nd, 1963 continue to resonate, reminding us of how far we've come and how far we still have to go. Stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep watching American Shadows. For in understanding our past, we gain insights that can help us build a more just and equitable future.